Food shortages are coming. This is our future. Due to the coming grand solar minimum, all one has to do is look at the past grand solar minimums and the food shortages that went on during those times as well. The rise and falls of civilizations all around the world due to food shortages because of the cooling due to the grand solar minimums. We will go over those charts that show that proof. The evidence is in the history and it's in the facts. It's not within the fear-mongering global warming communities that we see pushing global warming lies constantly throughout the mainstream and semi-mainstream media. First, let's get into some of these lying stories that we see in the media. Your white Christmas is on the way out. This is on Quartz. Funny, down here we see, in the coming decades, many children alive today in the Northern Hemisphere may come to remember a white Christmas as mostly a memory. I don't know. Let's look at what's actually going on. Major storm to spread snow and wind from West Plains to Upper Midwest and New England Christmas week. Here's a map you can see. This is on weather.com of the snow that's going to be coming. Doesn't look like it's going to be a memory for these children. Or how about this article? Major storm with heavy snow, flooding, and severe weather risked looms for central U.S. after Christmas. The mainstream media just loves to push their narrative of the global warming agenda, which really is just a land grab and a control grab, as we know through Agenda 21 and everything else that they push. Here's a funny article I saw. Time to end debate on climate change. Of course, pushing their narrative. What I thought was funny is the extinction rate up 1,000-fold. Little did they know it's going to be due to food shortages because of the grand solar minimum, just like we see in the history of grand solar minimums and the rise and fall of civilizations, which we will go into, such as the Roman Empire. Also funny to note how your mainstream media loves to just mold your opinion and your own thought process. Here you see this sign. Clearly, this has been photoshopped. Your planet is dying. You can tell that that's computer done, that's not written. And also touching back upon the extinction rate up 1,000-fold, let's look at some of the articles that are actually going on. Farmers seek special relief package for crop loss in Lahore. Lahore Spiti, probably not pronouncing that right. Residents are demanding a special relief package from the state government to cope with the loss caused due to early snowfall in the district. This article is from back in October 2018. Or maybe this video here could shed some light on what's actually going on. This farmer reeling over the fact that he's lost his crops due to early snowfall. And these are the types of things that we will be facing, and the same types of things that have been faced in the past. Let's take a look at this map here of all the grand solar minimums going into the grand solar maximums. Here you can see the maximums, and at the tops are the times of when civilizations grew and prospered. But during the minimums is the times when these societies collapsed and fell. And just like the period when the Roman Empire was the most healthiest, was between 200 BC and 150 AD, coincided with what's referred to as the Roman climate optimum. And that's where weather was warm due to high solar activity. But the weather drastically deteriorated 150 to 400 AD when the solar output dropped. That's the time known as the Roman transition period, and it hit temperature lows in the late antique Little Ice Age, the period from 450 to 700 AD. Growing seasons were shortened, and due to that there was food shortages, diseases, and millions of people died due to that fact, and the empire fell apart. Or how about the medieval warming period, the period from about 900 AD to 1300 AD, where the global temperatures were as much as 1.4 Celsius above what they are presently. In the oxygen isotope studies in Greenland, Ireland, Germany, Switzerland, Tibet, China, New Zealand, and elsewhere, as well as tree ring data, confirm this information of the global medieval warm period. And the period just happened to coincide with the grand solar maximum, with prolonged high solar output, greater growing seasons, making it easier to grow food. But after this period of increased solar activity, it went into a grand solar minimum, known as the Little Ice Age, which led to the Great Famine from 1310 to 1322, where once again, food became a lot harder to grow, millions of people died, the population of Iceland was cut in half, and warm weather crops that were grew in China for centuries were abandoned because they could no longer grow them anymore. These are the same type of issues that we will be facing going into our grand solar minimum, known as the Eddy minimum. Food will become a lot harder to grow, growing seasons will be shortened, and due to this, of course, the price of food will go through the roof. On top of the fact that we're already way overcharged on everything that we do in comparison to what people are paid. Just like looking back in, say, the 1950s and 60s, where annual salaries were like $4,000 or $5,000, but a house only cost $12,000. The comparison is nothing even close to that these days, and that's why everybody's struggling, because the system is designed now to keep us down, because we are not paid in comparison for what the cost of living is. And it's only going to get worse when the cost of food is raised, because it's going to be a lot harder to grow food, and the temperatures that will be coming will kill off crops when early freezes happen, early snowfalls, just like we're already seeing happen now. And just like Valentina Zarkova, one of the leading people in this whole field who've kind of really understood this and figured this whole thing out, she's someone who's actually doing actual research and not just going along with government-funded global warming fear-mongering. One of the few people who actually predicted that solar cycle 24 would be weaker than 23. Here's a statement from her when she was at the Global Warming Policy Foundation in October 2018. And it says, shortage of vegetation periods can lead to possible food shortages in 2028 to 2032. The upcoming grand solar minimum 2020 to 2055. But there's also other factors that could come into play, such as the sun's magnetic fields being out of place, which could prolong it. Something else worth noting is that there's a link between volcanic eruptions during the grand solar minimum and grand solar maximums. Something that will also as well impact food. If there's a big eruption and ash cloud blocks out the sun, then that will also play a factor into growing food. On top of the shorter growing periods due to the grand solar minimum already, and then as well, something as well worth noting is that Harvard, moving forward with their geoengineering plans in 2019 to block out the sun because they're not given the right information, or these crazy people in power want there to be food shortages. We already know they've been building bunkers and safe houses for them and their friends, deep underground military bases loaded with everything that they need, so they don't really care if the world population food goes down. No biggie to them, they'll just wait and come out once the population is reduced, which is something they as well always admit that they want. Just like we see in the Georgia Guidestones, where it says the population of the world should be down to 500 million, or all of the quotes due to depopulation. Look up Elite's depopulation quotes if you're interested in how many people who run the world say that they want the population to be reduced. So the history really just speaks for itself. During the grand solar maximums are when civilizations rise, such as the Roman and the medieval periods, and then during the minimums are when these civilizations fall apart due to the ability to not grow food. If you can't grow food and you can't keep society running, then they fall apart and they leave. People start traversing to different areas to live, to warmer locations. If there's no food, there's no people. And it's why the most deserted areas on Earth are places where there's no food and no water, such as deserts, because you can't grow food there and you can't raise livestock there. It's either impossible or extremely difficult, and nobody wants to do it. Not saying it's not done, clearly people do it, but it's not easy by any means. So we're really set up for just quite a interesting time ahead of us, going into a grand solar minimum, which we will see increased volcanic activity, and we know the dangers that those bring, with the Anak Krakatau volcano that just erupted the other day, bringing a tsunami, killing and devastating many people in Indonesia once again with a tsunami. A very sad situation. But along with these volcanoes, we will also have Harvard doing geoengineering, and there's also geoengineering already going on, as we all see the chemtrails in the skies and the ionospheric heaters around the world. There's clearly geoengineering going on. It's really set up for a dangerous situation with famines and food shortages going into our future. And really the best thing that one could do is to prepare during the times when it's not as lean. Get the things that you need now to help you survive through these times that we are going into. It'll be a lot better to buy food now at the current price and what it's going to go to when there's going to be food shortages. The cost of food will definitely go up, as well as the cost of other things that people are going to be buying in abundance of during these times just for survival purposes. And these are things that you'll need in your future, and they're things you should definitely get your hands on now while they're at the prices they're at now, because you can guarantee they will be going up. And of course, your number one greatest prep will always be getting right with God. Thanks for watching, and God bless.